Okay, welcome to Go Joe's Math. And today we're going to talk about writing an equation. This is what you need to do. You need to have your notebook with your paper and a pencil to take notes. Not a pen, I want you to use a pencil to take notes. You're going to write down everything that you think is important. And if I'm going too fast, you can stop the video, replay it, rewrite it, or go back, stop the video and re-listen to it. But whatever, you want to watch this video and take notes and concentrate on taking good notes about what you think is important, what I talk about. So let's get started. Today we're going to talk about writing an equation. So that's the title of your notes. And we need to understand what an equation is. An equation is a math statement that has an equal sign and a variable. Those are the two things that it has to have. It has to have an equal sign and a variable. An equation is a math statement that has an equal sign and a variable. And then it has a series of symbols that tells you what to do, like multiplication, addition, and subtraction. You solve an equation, which is where you find the value of the variable. So when you have an equation, you have a variable, you have some mathematical signs like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. You have an equal sign. And the goal of the equation is to solve the answer, to find out what the variable represents to make the equation true. So, for instance, see Mr. Al over there gives me a hand during my videos. We're going to use guess, check, and revise, but these are all equations. They have a variable, they all have variables, they all have mathematical signs, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and they all have equal signs. You have x plus 12 equals 20. 20 is what the equation represents. But our goal is to find the solution for x. We need to find the value of x that will make x plus 12 equal 20. So, what are we going to do here? This one's pretty easy. We're going to use guess, check, and revise to solve these. So, what number added to 12 will give us 20? That's right. X equals 8. But notice how I wrote the answer. So you have to write the problem down, and then you have to write x equals 8. You can't just write x equals 8 when you do the homework tomorrow in class. So you have to write down the problem, and then you have to write underneath it what x equals. Over here, we have 15 divided by x equals 3. What number, when you divide 15 by this number and you get 3, what is x? 5. See, we're using guess, check, and revise. So how do we check it? We go back and we say 15 divided by 5 equals 3. And you can do that mentally. Over here you can say 8 plus 12 equals 20. That's true. Here we have 40 minus x equals 14. Well, what could we do to find the answer? Well, you could go over here, because this one's a little bit more difficult sometimes to do in your head. So you could go over here on the side and say, well, if I'm subtracting x from 40 to get 14, that means I add these two, so I could subtract 14 from 40 to get the number. So I could come over here and do work, but you have to do that on the side, but with the problem so that I can see it. So x would equal 26, and you'd say, well, 40 minus 26 is 14. You don't rewrite the problem and go 40 minus 26 equals 14. That's a no. You do your work over here, you leave the equation, you don't change it and plug it in. You do this on the side and you show me that x equals 26. Here you have what? 4 times y equals 28. So, 4 times what number will give me 28? 7. So we say y equals 7. So that's all we're going to do for the solving of the equations. Right now, we're just going to do them where you can do them mentally and using guess, check, and revise. The next thing that's a little bit more difficult is the two things called a verbal description versus a verbal model. Now, a verbal description is when I give you a description like this, and I say something like, and you don't need to write this down, what number, when I add 12 to it, gives me 20? So x plus 12 equals 20. That is a verbal description. A verbal model, so a verbal description is when we are describing how you want, when someone describes to you how they want you to write the equation. A verbal description is how someone wants you to write the equation. So it's going to be talking about adding and subtracting, multiplying and dividing, and it's going to say what number. Anytime you hear what number, that's a variable, and then it tells you what to do to that number. A verbal model, however, is always associated with word problems. You want to write that down. Verbal models are associated with word problems, and verbal descriptions are associated with writing equations. Okay, so let's go with verbal descriptions. What number can be added to 44 to get 80? I don't want you to tell me the number. I want you to write an equation. And an equation has to have a variable, addition, multiplication, division or subtraction sign, an equal sign, and it has to be written just like this. So this says, what number can be added to 44 to get 80? And you have to write it the way it's described. You can't just, I know you'll say, well, it doesn't make a difference, but it will later. So you have to trust me. You have to know that you have to write it the exact way it's described. And this is a verbal description, and they want you to write an equation out of it. They don't want you to write the answer in it. They want you to write an equation. So what number can be added to 44? So what comes first? X, the variable, or 44? Well, it says what number can be added to 44. So 44 comes first, and it's going to be added. And what number is it? I don't want to know what number it is. I don't want to know what number it is. I want to know the variable first, because you have to write the equation. What number can be added to 44? 44 comes first, added to plus x equals to get 80. Now, you're going to come over here if you need to, and on the side you're going to go 80 minus 44, because if these two numbers add up to get 80, then I should be able to subtract 44 to find out what x is. So I get 6, 36. I have to write my answer underneath. This is the way you show your answers. This is worth 3 points. 2 points for writing this, 1 point for writing the equation, another point for writing it in the correct order. If you wrote x plus 44, you would miss a point because it says what number can be added to 44, not x plus 44. So this would be worth 2 points and this is worth 1 point. The work's over here on the side. Then number 2, what number can you subtract from 125? See, now it's critical that you know which one comes first. What number can you subtract from 125 to get 65? Well, you should know that it's equal to 65 because to get 65, but it's not x minus 125 because it says what number can you subtract from 125? So it's 125 minus x. Now here, if I subtract x to get 65, then can't I go 125 minus 65 to see what x is? Yeah, over here on the side. So it would be x equals 60. Notice how I'm showing it. This is 2 points and this is worth a point. I do not write 125 minus 60 equals 65. You won't get credit for that. That is not an equation. You can't write 125 minus 60 equals 65. That's just a number sentence. Let's do the last one. What number can you divide 54 by to get 3? What number can you divide 54 by to get 3? Well, we know it equals 3, right? So you have, the challenge is, does x come first or does 54 come first? What number can you divide 54 by? So think, if I say 6 divided by 3, divided by comes after that number. So what number can you divide 54 by? So it's 54 divided by x. Well, how many times does 3 go into 54? And if you don't know, in your head, you can come over here to the side, and 3 goes into 54 once, and then 8 times 24. That you could show work if you need to. If you know it, you don't need to, but you must write 54 divided by x equals 3, and then x equals 18. That's how you show. That would be the answer. Each one of these would be worth 3 points. Okay. Those are verbal descriptions. Now I want you to write these down and try these. So you're going to stop the video, write these down, write the equation that they represent, and then give the answer. And when you come back, start the video when you're ready, and we'll go over the answers. So stop the video now and write these down. Good luck. Okay, welcome back. Let's see how you did. So it says, what number can be added to 100 to get 125? So we have 100 plus x equals 125. X equals 25. Now, if you put x plus 100, you'd miss a point because it says added to 100. And those matter. How you write what it says matters. If you use a different variable besides x, that's okay. You can use any variable you want to. I just like x. But we'll use y for the next one. What number can 15 be subtracted from to get 30? Now that's different. What number can 15 be subtracted from? This is not 15 minus x. And if you think about that, it doesn't make sense because the answer is 30. So you're subtracting 15 from some number. So you should have gotten x minus 15 equals 30. Well, what is x? You should have gotten 45. What number can be divided by 6 to get 4? So x divided by 6 equals 4. X equals 24. You could have written this as a fraction and put x over 6 equals 4. Same thing. X divided by 6 is the same thing as the fraction, x over 6. But if you don't quite get that, don't worry about that because we'll be practicing more. The important thing is these are all called, what are these called? Do you remember? Verbal descriptions, right? These are verbal descriptions. Now we have verbal models. Verbal models are associated, if you recall, with word problems. You use words to represent what the numbers stand for, what they actually represent in an equation. So here we go. The income for a 3-family yard sale was divided so each family got $65. Write a verbal model, an equation, that's a comma, and find the total income of the sale. So you know each family got $65. So we need to write down, you're going to use that problem-solving plan and the guess, check, and revise to help you set this up. We need to identify the question. They want to know the total income of the sale, how much they totally collected. That's the question. So that's step 1 of the problem-solving plan. Step 2, we want to identify the other numbers. Well, we know we have 3 families that are going to share the income of the sale. And we know that each family got $65. This is the challenging part because you're going to want to do what? You're going to want to write 3 times 65 equals x. That is a major no. No, no, no. You cannot write 65 times 3 equals x. That is not an equation. You will lose points every time. This is not an equation because you can't have the numbers over here equaling x. That's just telling that you. That's just could be just a blank. A variable has to be written on the left side of the equation to be called an equation. It has to be on the left side with something being done to it. You can't just go 65 times 3 equals x. That's not an equation. You can't equal the variable ever by itself. So this is a no. That's not an equation. You have to write something like this. This could be a giant x or x. T divided by 3 equals 65. T divided by 3 equals 65 because here's the T, where T is the total money that we made from the garage sale. 3 are the number of families that we have to divide it by, and 65 is each person's share. And notice that it was $195 was the income. How did I get that? I went over here and did 65 times 3, which is 195. Notice I have dollar sign and I have total income, because when I have a word problem I have to put the labels or the units with it. Now, what's the verbal model? This is the equation. The verbal model is associated with word problems, and you have to write the verbal description of the equation. In a sense, like we rewrite t divided by 3 equals 65. And then you have to tell me what each part represents. T is the total income. See how I have the arrow? Then I rewrite it with divided by. So I'm rewriting the equation with words that describe what each number represents. Total income divided by, well, what was 3 representing? Total families. I don't need to write 3, I write total families, or 3 families, or the families, and then I write equals, and what does 65 represent? Each family's share. That is a verbal model, not a verbal description. That is a verbal model that tells us what the equation stands for, each part. What does each part stand for in the word problem? This is the equation. This is not an equation. Don't do this. Okay? Now, what you're going to do right now, at the bottom of your paper, you're going to write what I call the 2-1. 2-1. You're going to write 2 things you learned in this lesson, and you're going to ask, whoa, I dropped my pen. You're going to write down 2 things you learned, and you're going to write down 1 question that you still have, or you want to know more about, or you still don't understand. So you're going to write down 2 things you know, and 1 question. And you're going to bring that to class tomorrow, and that's going to drive the discussion. After we have our discussion, and we go over it again, then we'll do our homework in class. Good luck, and I'll see you tomorrow at school. Bye-bye.